last week, was it last week or the week before, when the UN General Assembly was happening, there's this weird story that came out of nowhere. The SIM card farm was discovered in and around New York in a 37-mile radius or diameter around the UN building. Seems like a pretty large diameter. Could have been Connecticut even. Anyway, which country was behind it? People were guessing. There was just a few options. And, drum roll. Tiffany, who was behind it?
It was China.
Whoa! What?
Whoa!
Those guys?
How could they?
Okay, tell us about what we know.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, right, in the lead up to the UN General Assembly, the Secret Service came out, was like, hold up, we just discovered the SIM farm. That could have, taken down all the communications when like all the world leaders were here. So kind of, to be alarming. And then that kind of disappeared. And then we're like, okay, wait, what SIM farm? Like what? What is this? Who? And
the story just got the whoop.
Yeah. And then like it made a tiny little blip. Like some people talked about it, mostly in like the national security and areas. But then so ABC came out and with a follow-up actually last week saying that so instead of the 100,000 SIM cards, they found an additional 200,000. So total of 300,000 SIM cards, along with hundreds of servers. So you mentioned, right? Could it have been Connecticut? Actually, yes. These were scattered in 3 locations. Multiple sites across New York, New Jersey, and as well Connecticut. And so, very big. But the whole point was like all of these devices together could send up to 30 million texts in just 1 minute. So you could do a lot with that. So criminal organizations use it, sometimes like cartels and stuff. There is a lot of money that's needed to do this. So it's like, that's why initially they were like probably some type of nation state was behind it. And then this latest iteration was like, oh, it was China, surprise, surprise. But basically the concern here is with so much, you could just be really annoying and send out a bunch of spam text, 30 million per 1 minute, right? Or it's enough that you could actually override, say there was an emergency situation and the city is trying to alert everyone, be like, hey, there's an emergency, blah, blah, blah. It could interfere with that, or it could, yes, cripple basically the grid and take it down. So there's a lot of concerns with this because it's like actually kind of like, sure, it's quite a lot of money, but it's not that much amount of money if you're talking about crippling a network.
Right. And also the stuff that you use to build this seems like the stuff that anybody can buy. You just need to buy a lot of it, right?
Yeah. And then we saw the pictures. I know, Chris, you were covering it when it first came out. It just looks like, a little studio
Literally
apartment.
renting a studio apartment, some office space.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vacant that in the city.
Do we have any confidence that they found it all?
Well, so it sounds like this latest one, yes, but they are still trying to figure out who rented the spaces and what the motive.
But that should be fairly easy to figure out, right? And then the question is, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, I think
because
that's a bigger
what's
question
the next step here?
than the motive.
Yes.
You can cripple our communications in a few minutes. What are we going to do?
Exactly. So that's the concern, because then it ties into a bunch of other reporting that we're getting about other things that kind of all ties together. So the latest was, remember, we're talking about, especially Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy was talking about CDLs, or the commercial driver's licenses, and foreigners driving it because there were those deadly accidents that happened. And so the latest is the Daily Caller has a new investigative piece out that found that a company and an organization that is deeply infused with Chinese intel services is teaching Chinese illegals to be truck drivers. So it's really interesting. So this group is the Chinese American Trucker Organization USA. It's a New York-based nonprofit. And supposedly it has helped over 1,000 Chinese students obtain CDLs in like just a few months with a 100% pass rate. So even if you don't speak or understand English, you need to read the signs, you would assume, you can pass, and then you'll get your CDL and off you go on the road, and you can, and then the issue here is there's a lot of American truckers who are like, the issue here is these people will take any job. So then it's squishing out the American truck drivers who trained for years to get these CDLs. And then the spokesperson or the board chairwoman who's with this
You don't
group,
train for years to get a CDL. I'll just throw that out there. It's like a several month long process. But
some have a lot of pride. The board chairwoman has held leadership roles within organizations tied to the United Front Work, which is an overseas propaganda arm of the Chinese Communist Party. So there's a lot of concerns there with like, okay, what is this group and what are they doing? And then basically, like, if we look at the big picture of how we got here, right, if we remember under the previous administration, Beijing at the time was like, we're not going to take back Chinese citizens who are crossing illegally into the U.S. And so for some reason, as a result, the administration was like, okay, the solution here is to lower the vetting process. So instead of like, I don't know, it was a slew of questions, it became just 4 questions that they would ask if they actually caught one of these Chinese aliens crossing across, right? They'd be like, here are the questions. And then it was very easy you would see it a lot on Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok, where they're like, these are the best parts along the southern border to get into the country because there's gaps in the walls.
Wait, so they would ask like less questions, making it easier to kick them out or harder to kick them out?
Harder to kick them out because it's easier to accept them.
Oh, I see.
And because there's only a few questions, they were also on these Chinese app, the Chinese version of TikTok, doing like the questions and then the answers you should give them. And so the concern is basically because of that, it was about 182,000 Chinese nationals illegally crossed, and we don't know who they are because of this improper vetting. And then now you have this piece, right, being like, well, where did they end up? Well, some of them apparently are on our roads driving these trucks with this 100% pass rate program that they're using. And then it's raising a bunch of concerns about like what they're carrying, right? So you actually had the Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy responding on Fox on Thursday to this piece, this Daily Caller investigation. And he said, this is actually mass fraud and abuse of the system. So they are trying to like crack down on it. You've seen recent things. But when it comes to, what they could be hauling across the states, there was another recent piece that was talking, because everyone's talking about, oh, is there going to be a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, right? And then some are like, what would happen in that case? You would want to distract the home country, as in the US, so that they're focused domestically and don't have time to deal with something across the world over there. So A, the SIM farm could bring in if you cripple the networks and communications. But then B, you have all the Chinese cranes in our US ports, right, which has communication systems embedded inside where Beijing could somehow deal with the ports there. So they could already be impacting the cargo that's coming in or out, like if our military equipment and stuff. But at the same time, some of those cargo, like shipping containers, are actually missiles.
Stop.
It literally looks like a shipping container, but inside it's like a missile, and then you would
Hold on. What?
Yes.
You said the shipping containers coming on the ship from China to like the LA port, and then the crane picks it up, and then they put it on the truck. That shipping container is a missile?
Yes. It literally looks like a so it literally looks like a shipping container. But then if you open it inside,
Oh, it's a missile inside the
yeah.
So we know these are coming over as a fact?
Well, we don't know if they're coming here for sure, but this is a growing thing where I think Russia also has the same type of technology. But it literally looks like a shipping container. So it raises concerns about like
Everything?
well, yeah.
It raises concerns about everything. What? So hold on. So the United Front has a sub offshoot that trains Chinese illegal aliens that came in under the Biden administration to get CDLs. Then they're shipping in these missile containers, and then what? These guys are picking them up, or they could, I guess, be picking them up.
That's the concern that a lot of national security, experts are raising. They're like, what?
If you wanted to place them around the country, this would be what you would do.
And then it's
right?
like with the 182,000, we don't know who they are. So, some of them could have already been operatives. And then obviously there's a long history of the Chinese regime doing like intellectual property theft and stuff. The FBI was saying a couple of years ago that each year costs like $600 billion in terms of theft, IP theft. Whether that's like students, right? We've covered that a lot here.
Okay, hold on. Getting back to these missiles, though, it's like a shipping container, and what? Like you press a button, like the walls fall, and there's like a missile.
hydraulic lift on the
It
roof.
opens the roof, yeah.
Interesting.
And
And
then
they
they
shoot
they
out
shoot
a
out
missile.
Really? That's crazy.
I'll put the graphic on screen. But so basically, looking big picture, right? The tariff truce between the U.S. and China is coming up soon, November 10th. And so why that matters is there's been a lot of focus on, say, rare earth minerals, especially because the U.S. defense industries actually are quite reliant on China's rare earth. So if we wanted to boost our own defenses, like fighter jets, missiles, everything, we spent a lot of those in the Middle East conflicts and also Ukraine. So if we wanted to boost our own, and then of course President Trump has been talking about shipbuilding, right? It's like all these different materials and elements you actually, or even smartphones, just basics. A lot of it right now, because of environmental protection and regulation, blah, 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 you can only get them from China for the most part. because there's actually
is it from China or like from like Africa that's controlled by China?
both, because the refining and processing is in China. So even if you get, because China does have some of the materials themselves, and then if you say get it from Africa and stuff, it all gets sent to China to be refined and processed because they have very different environmental standards over there, right?
Higher?
So no. So
I have a question.
yeah.
So something that sticks out to me, that obviously the missiles speak for themselves, but it's not just what the trucks are carrying, it's the fact that they may have a direct pathway into our trucking industry. This entire country runs on trucking. You shut that down, you lose fuel, you lose all shipping, all goods, everything. Like that's gone. Food.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you do have a lot of people raising concerns about that aspect as well, regardless of what they're carrying, right? It's like if you shut it down, and it's also taking American jobs, and because they can't read the signs half the time, you have had cases of accidents, some fatal. So it's like it's a whole slew of issues, like very serious issues. But then on Thursday, we saw that China announced new export restrictions on a bunch of different things. So artificial diamonds, lithium-ion batteries, and rare earth materials. That's going to kick in on November 8th, so 2 days before that U.S. tariff truce with China is set to expire as they're trying to negotiate a new trade deal. And so why that matters is, and this is important for like all our different things like semiconductors, advanced electronics, of course, military and stuff. But if you want some good news,
Please, I need
there's
it.
there's a tiny little city called Ambler. It's in Alaska. You can only reach it by plane. So it's in the news recently because it's known as the Ambler Mining District. It's actually a huge untapped reserve of copper, cobalt, gallium, and germanium, and some others. And gallium and germanium are the two that you saw in headlines, I want to say last year, when China was like, oh, we're going to restrict these. So, you know, it's a huge deal in the industry. So why this matters is on Monday, the White House announced that they're going to expedite the permitting process for this area. And they're going to do a 10% stake in something called Trilogy Metals, which holds the claims to that area, the mining area. So because of that, you saw, you know, their stock price go up 200+%.
Oh, the U.S. took a 10% stake.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. You know, the Trump administration has been really using that taking a large stake in company route recently.
I mean, that's a whole other discussion if that's good or not.
Yeah.
But it is a step where you are seeing this administration say this is an issue, and they are taking direct steps to address it in the way they see how. Because there are actually, even like, obviously Alaska is a U.S. state, but in the mainland, the continental U.S., there's also a lot of untapped reserve. But we do have a lot of permitting and regulation, especially from environmental groups. So it is a very slow process because none of these are overnight things, right? So it's like, even if you got it, then you would probably be like 10 years out, and then who knows who's in the administration. So a lot of companies are like, is this worth it, right? It's like, if I spend so much money investing in this because this administration says it's important, and then in 4 years or 8 years, right, the next one comes in, they're like, oh, reverse.
Right.
So you are seeing them try to like get ahead of it, basically. And you had Interior Secretary Doug Burgum was telling reporters about this, that this will unlock all of the minerals that we need to win the AI arms race against China, because right now China does corner that market, especially when it comes to processing. So, little bit of good news.
Wow.
Look at Alaska.
You know that meme where it's like, I forgot how it goes exactly, but it's like, oh no, we're running out of this precious material. It's like, oh, only China has it. Some farmer in the U.S. finds like an unlimited source of this material, and it's like a cycle. It just keeps going back and forth. Okay, so okay, good news. Yeah, that's great. We're about to have a lot of those germanium and cobalt and copper. Bad news, I guess, is that our roads are filled with Chinese illegals who are taught, even if they don't know how to speak English, how to drive a CDL. Also, bad news, the shipping containers that they're lugging around could contain missiles. One question I have for you is, the SIM card attack farm that they discovered, was that like a coincidence that it was discovered around the time of the UN General Assembly? Was it like there for a year, and it could have been like you know, set off at any time, and they just happened to discover it around the UN? Do you know about that?
That part's unclear, but I do think it makes sense because the Secret Service obviously has to do a bunch of sweeps because President Trump was going to speak. So I do think like they were increasing their, you know, investigations around the area.
I wonder how they found it.
I think probably the power, the utility.
No, but it doesn't have to be on, does it?
No, maybe I mean, they said it was also could have been used by cartels and other
Yeah,
things like that.
criminal networks.
Maybe some criminal network was using spam messages. They saw the utilities go up. I don't know. All
Fascinating.
speculation. We know nothing.
All right, leave your speculations in the comments section below.
All right, I know exactly what you're thinking. That was a great clip you just watched. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to follow and also check out either these videos or maybe they're on this side. I don't know which side they're on, but we set it up so these are the videos that YouTube is suggesting to you as the best ones that you'll probably like the most. So check them out, this side,